It started like any other quiet morning in our peaceful suburban neighborhood. I had just made coffee and was settling into a rare day off when I heard the unmistakable sound of my front door creaking open. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery or a neighbor stopping by, but what I saw next made my blood run cold. Standing in my hallway, bold as ever, was Karen from the HOA. No knock, no call. No permission. She had literally broken into my home, clipboard in hand, muttering something about a mandatory inspection. Now, here's the part she didn't know, and honestly, I was glad she didn't. I'm not just your average homeowner. I'm a sitting federal judge. That means I've spent years upholding the law, protecting rights, and dealing with people who think rules don't apply to them. Karen, of course, had no idea who she was dealing with. She just saw another house on her list, another chance to flex the thin layer of authority her HOA badge gave her. She walked through my living room, inspecting furniture like she owned the place, commenting on things that had absolutely nothing to do with neighborhood regulations. I asked her to leave calmly, professionally, but she refused, claimed she had board-approved access. That's when I realized this was more than just nosiness. This was trespassing, plain and simple. And she was digging herself into a legal hole, deeper than she could ever imagine. The cameras in my house had caught everything. Her entry, her rummaging, her complete disregard for privacy or the law. But instead of calling the police right away, I decided to let her finish. I wanted to see just how far she'd go and what she did next. It crossed a line even I wasn't expecting. You're not going to believe what happened when she opened that door down the hall. She reached for the handle to my office, the one door in the house that's always kept locked for a reason. Keep sensitive case files in there. Documents from federal court proceedings that are absolutely off-limits to anyone without clearance. Not even friends or family go in there without my say-so. And yet, there she was, standing there with this smug expression like she had every right in the world to poke around. I asked her again, firmly this time, to leave the house. But she waved her clipboard like it was some kind of legal warrant, muttering about routine compliance. Here's where things get more bizarre. Karen claimed that the HOA had received a complaint about unusual activity in my garage and office. I pressed her for more details, and she couldn't name who filed it or when. Her answers kept circling back to vague community concerns, which to me sounded more like made-up excuses than actual policy. I knew my rights, and more importantly, I knew the law. But instead of losing my temper, I just watched, letting the situation play out while my home security system recorded every second. Meanwhile, she started scribbling things onto her form, making notes about furniture placement, curtain choices, even the height of my hedges. None of it made sense for an interior inspection, let alone one done without notice or consent. She acted like this was her job, but she was clearly making it up as she went. And the wildest part? She hadn't even checked with the rest of the HOA board. This was all her. At this point, I was still holding back. I hadn't told her who I was. She thought I was just another resident she could boss around. But the moment she stepped into my office and saw what was on my desk, everything started to change. Karen pushed open the office door like she had just uncovered some neighborhood secret. But the moment she stepped inside, her whole energy shifted. Her eyes darted to the framed certificate on the wall, my federal judicial appointment, signed and sealed. She paused, suddenly quiet, then turned to the desk where I had several case files laid out, along with a law journal and a sealed court brief marked confidential. I watched her face shift from confident to confused. She wasn't expecting that, not at all. But even then, she didn't stop. She tried to play it off, pretending the name on the certificate didn't mean anything. Interesting decor, she muttered, flipping through papers like they were neighborhood newsletters. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a power trip, it was personal. Karen had clearly been watching my home for a while, waiting for the perfect moment when I'd be alone, maybe thinking I'd be too intimidated to stop her. She didn't know I had dealt with people far more aggressive than her, from courtroom defendants to high-stakes legal counsel. But she kept pushing, almost like she was looking for something. That's when another layer of the story started to form. My neighbor across the street, Mr. Delgado, had warned me weeks ago about Karen digging into people's personal business, checking trash bins, asking questions about people's schedules, even taking photos from her car. I hadn't paid much attention back then. I just figured she was overly involved with HOA matters. But now, standing in my private office, uninvited, pretending it was standard HOA procedure, something wasn't adding up. And just as I was about to speak up, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Delgado. Just 4 words: "She's been inside mine." That changed everything. I stared at that message on my phone for a second too long. She's been inside mine. It hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a one-time thing. Karen had made a habit of entering homes in the neighborhood, uninvited, under the fake cover of inspections. And now, she was standing in my office, surrounded by federal documents, casually acting like she had every right to be there. I stayed calm, but inside, everything was on high alert. I slowly stepped closer, positioning myself between her and the desk. She tried to keep her cool, asking questions like, "Why would someone need all this legal paperwork at home?" Still pretending like she didn't know exactly who I was. I could see the nervous twitch in her hand, though how she stopped writing in her notepad and started fidgeting with the edge of her clipboard. I asked her directly if she had entered any other homes without permission. Her response was vague. "As HOA president, I have certain liberties." That told me everything. She had no approval, no legal backing, just ego, and an unlocked front door. Meanwhile, my security system was pinging me with motion alerts from earlier. I tapped into the feed and scrolled back. Just 2 days before, she had walked right into the Delgado's place while they were out, same clipboard, same smug look. Except this time, she'd rifled through drawers. Back in the room, Karen noticed the shift in my tone and started inching toward the door, clearly looking for an out. But I wasn't about to let her walk away like nothing happened. Not with what I had seen. Not with the law she'd just trampled over. Then came the knock on the door. Not mine, the front door. Firm, repeated. Karen froze. I looked at her, and for the first time since this started, she looked scared. I opened my phone. The app showed a live feed of 2 uniformed officers standing outside. That's when everything started to spiral. I walked toward the front door, my heart steady, but my mind racing. Karen stood frozen near the hallway, gripping her clipboard like it was some kind of shield. As I opened the door, the 2 officers stepped in with calm authority, nodding politely. "Judge Morales," one of them said, "we got a call about a possible break-in. Neighbor said someone entered your home without consent." Before I could say anything, Karen spoke up, her voice strained but trying to sound confident. "This is a misunderstanding. I'm the HOA president. I have legal access for inspections." The officers exchanged a quick glance. Clearly, this wasn't the first time they'd heard something like that. One of them asked, "Do you have a signed warrant, board order, or homeowner consent?" Karen's silence spoke volumes, but then the twist hit harder than I expected. One of the officers pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. It was a screenshot from a neighbor's security cam. Karen, earlier that same morning, leaving another home down the block with a folder under her arm. The house belonged to the Weltons, an elderly couple who had just returned from a week-long trip. According to the report, they came home to find papers missing from their home office. Medical records, banking documents. Suddenly, this wasn't just an overreach of HOA authority. It was possibly criminal unauthorized entry, theft of private information, maybe even identity theft. Karen's face turned pale as the officer asked if she was carrying anything she hadn't entered with. Her hands clutched her clipboard tighter, and I realized it wasn't just notes inside. It looked thicker than before. She backed up a step and tried to talk her way out of it, but her voice cracked. "I was only trying to make sure the neighborhood stayed safe. You don't understand what people are hiding." That's when I knew we weren't just dealing with an entitled HOA president. We were dealing with someone who believed she had the right to control everyone around her, no matter what laws she had to break. The room felt heavy as Karen stood there, cornered not just by the officers, but by her own lies unraveling in real time. I calmly asked the officers if I could show them something. We walked back into my office, and I played the footage from my security system every moment she entered, every drawer she opened, every file she glanced at. The officers watched closely, exchanging tense looks. Karen didn't say a word. She just stood behind us, quiet now, the weight of her actions setting in. One officer asked her to hand over the clipboard. She hesitated, then finally gave it up. Inside weren't just notes, there were printed copies of homeowner schedules, handwritten passwords, and a folded-up blueprint of the neighborhood with certain homes marked in red. My house, the Delgados, the Weltons, even the Martins, who'd been away on vacation for 2 weeks. This wasn't just snooping, it was planned. That was it. The officer calmly placed her under temporary detainment while they called in backup. She didn't resist, but she looked straight at me and said, "You people have no idea what really goes on here." I didn't respond. Because in that moment, I finally understood this wasn't about HOA rules. It was about control. Karen wasn't inspecting homes, she was building a narrative, piece by piece, trying to justify whatever she already believed about the people around her. They walked her out to the patrol car, just as neighbors started gathering outside, confused, whispering, recording on their phones. And just as things seemed to settle, one of the officers pulled me aside and said, "You might want to check your garage." I walked over, opened it slowly, and there, tucked behind the water heater, was a small, hidden camera. Not mine. Not part of my system, a real-time feed light blinking red. Someone had been watching me long before today. And Karen might not have been acting alone. I stared at that blinking red light for a long time, trying to process what it meant. The officers carefully removed the device and confirmed it wasn't connected to my home network. It had its own power supply, its own signal. Someone had planted it there to watch me without my knowledge. Whether it was Karen or someone else she was working with, that part was still unclear. But one thing was certain. This had gone far beyond HOA drama. Over the next few days, the investigation unfolded fast. Police found more suspicious activity logs on Karen's devices, including timestamps of other unauthorized home visits and even a draft letter trying to remove several homeowners for vague violations. Her actions were clearly personal, not professional. As for the hidden camera, detectives traced it back to a private security firm one Karen had previously hired while claiming it was for the community's protection. Turns out, she had crossed a line legally, ethically, and deeply personally. The HOA board held an emergency meeting and voted to remove Karen from her position. Neighbors came forward with their own stories, little things they had brushed off before suddenly made sense. Privacy violations, unexplained visits, trust broken. But now, there was relief. A sense of unity. People started talking more, watching out for each other in a real, respectful way, not through surveillance or fake inspections. For me, it was a reminder that even in quiet neighborhoods, power in the wrong hands can do real harm. But it was also a reminder that the law works and truth has a way of surfacing. I may have been a federal judge, but in the end, I was just another neighbor who wanted peace and privacy. And thanks to a community willing to stand together, we got both back.